My mom tore up my Christmas gift, a glider tour I'd worked weeks to afford, and said, just send a card next time. So I canceled the hangar lease I'd secretly been paying for and sold the family airfield. I thought I'd done something good. It was Christmas Eve, and I'd driven 11 hours from Denver to Bozeman with the gift in the back seat, wrapped in dark green foil paper, tied with a silver ribbon. I had triple-checked the envelope to make sure the tickets were still inside. A scenic glider tour over the Rockies, 3 seats, private pilot, champagne brunch afterward. Not cheap. I'd picked up extra drone photography gigs for weeks to cover it. Shot weddings, surveyed jobs, even some real estate promo videos for a guy who always paid late. But it felt worth it. It was supposed to be something different, something memorable. A break from the usual chaos of material gifts and cheap apologies. I imagined the look on my mom's face, surprised, maybe even proud. Thought maybe it would be a turning point. It wasn't. We were all gathered in the living room after dinner. My brother, Jonah, and his wife were on the couch. My dad was in the recliner, nursing a whiskey. My mother sat cross-legged on the rug like she was 25 again, sipping wine and talking about her yoga retreat in Sedona. I waited for a pause in the conversation. Hey, I said, I have something I want to give you guys. I handed her the envelope. Open it. She raised an eyebrow. Ooh, mysterious. She tore it open, unfolded the papers, and scanned the first page. Then her smile faded. Slowly, like a drain unplugging. Is this for all of us? She asked, looking confused. Yeah, I said. It's a glider tour over the mountains. Thought it'd be a cool experience. There was a pause. Then she laughed. A single, sharp burst. Oh, Eli, she said, shaking her head. That's ridiculous. I blinked. What? She stood up, still holding the papers. Do you even know how dangerous these things are? No engine? Suspended in the air with nothing but faith and a parachute. Jonah chuckled, muttering something under his breath. His wife giggled. My mom lifted the envelope and, with a theatrical flair, tore it straight down the middle. I just stood there. Thanks, but no thanks, she said, letting the pieces drift into the fireplace like ash. Next time, just send a card. Nobody said anything. Not my dad. Not Jonah. Just the crackle of flames and the faint sound of ice clinking in glasses. I nodded slowly. Got it. Then I sat back down and said nothing. The next morning, I logged into the business account I'd used for the family's hangar lease, the one I'd been quietly covering for the past year, ever since Jonah's startup hit the rocks. I stopped the autopay, sent a termination notice to the leaseholder, called the county airfield and informed them of the cancellation. The aircraft would be repossessed by February. By noon, I blocked the shared access to my financial dashboard. By evening, I had booked a week off-grid in Telluride. That night, I didn't call anyone back. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. Just quiet, detached, a little freer. That night in Telluride, alone in a rented cabin with a fireplace that actually worked and snow drifting against the windows, I let myself remember. Not the edited versions I used to tell myself. No, the real memories. The ones I'd pushed down for years to keep the peace. I was 14 the first time I climbed onto the roof to install solar panels in the dead of winter. The landlord had struck a deal with my dad, labor in exchange for 2 months off rent. Jonah and Caleb, both older, were too busy with robotics camp. My mom said I had the best hands for it anyway. You're the most careful, she'd said, handing me a wrench and a coil of extension cords. You don't mess things up. What she meant was, I didn't complain. Back then, I told myself that made me special. It didn't. Jonah got a fully funded summer at MIT's drone lab when he was 16. Caleb got a paid internship in San Diego, plus a credit card with emergency use only taped to the back. Me? I got a used laptop and the Wi-Fi password when I asked to take a drone mechanics class at the community college. You're not going to need all that, my dad said. You're already good with your hands. That became the refrain of my life. Good with my hands. Good at fixing things. Good at staying quiet. By the time I graduated high school, I was already working 20 hours a week loading freight at a regional airport. I wanted to go to school for environmental systems engineering. My guidance counselor wrote me a glowing letter of recommendation. But when I brought it up at dinner, my mother just laughed. Eli, she said, how would you even pay for that? Then she turned to Jonah. You're still thinking Georgia Tech, right? I laughed along with them back then. Told myself I wasn't cut out for college anyway. That maybe I liked being behind the scenes. But it wasn't true. I just learned early that wanting things didn't get you anywhere in my family, not unless your dreams aligned with theirs. They didn't talk about it openly, but there was an unspoken hierarchy. Jonah and Caleb were visionaries. I was logistics. I funded their ventures, built out the garage for Jonah's prototype drones, maintained the maintenance records, paid the insurance premiums, always the one footing the bill for their passion projects, while mine were considered hobbies. It's funny how silence builds a structure. You start thinking it's a foundation, but really, it's a cage. They didn't speak to me after I canceled the hangar lease. Not a word. Not a call. Not even a passive-aggressive text from Caleb. And yet the silence felt loud. Intentional. Like a Cold War truce. They thought I'd come crawling back. I always did. But this time? This time, I was calculating the cost of decades. And for once, I was subtracting. The silence didn't last. It started with a message from Jonah. Real mature move, Eli. Hope you're proud of yourself. Then Caleb chimed in. You just screwed all of us over. If Dad's plane gets impounded, that's on you. And finally, my mother sent a single sentence. I always knew you'd throw this family away when it stopped being convenient. I didn't reply to any of them. Not right away. I just sat there in my apartment, rereading the messages with a strange sense of calm. Like I was watching a fire burn from the outside, not from inside the house anymore. They'd always had a gift for making me feel like the problem. I could hear it in their tone. The expectation that I'd feel ashamed. Guilty. That I'd rush to fix things just to earn back some scrap of approval. But I didn't. Not this time. I remembered when I was 13, and Caleb needed parts for a drone competition. He was desperate. His prototype had failed some weight test, and he needed high-efficiency rotors overnight. My parents didn't have the cash. Neither did he. So I gave him mine. The $238 I'd saved over a year from mowing lawns, cleaning gutters, and doing airport shift work on weekends. It was supposed to fund my science fair project, solar desalination units for low-resource communities. I had made sketches, collected materials, even spoken to a teacher about entering it in a regional expo. But when Caleb asked, my mom didn't hesitate. Be a good brother, Eli. I was. Caleb won first place that year. Got his photo in the local paper. Everyone called him brilliant. No one ever asked what happened to my project. And that wasn't the only time. Birthdays, holidays, family dinners, there was always a pattern. Jonah got an Apple Watch. Caleb got a GoPro. I got a set of flannel sheets for the colder nights in the garage. They didn't mean to be cruel. At least I don't think so. But they didn't have to mean it. The result was always the same. I was the afterthought. The useful one. The wallet with a face. So when the angry texts came flooding in calling me selfish, unreliable, petty, I didn't feel anything. No rage. No sadness. Just distance. Like I was finally watching the machine sputter without its fuel. And I realized something then as I let their words sit unread in my inbox. I had never been their equal. Only their backup plan. And maybe I'd finally stopped applying for a seat at a table I'd been serving all my life. It happened on a Thursday. I was checking my banking alerts, just habit by now, when I saw a charge I didn't recognize. For digits, flagged as medical services. The clinic was in Bozeman. I hadn't set foot in Bozeman in months. I clicked through the details. Patient name wasn't listed, but the account was mine. The withdrawal came from the same checking line I used to cover family emergencies. A joint access account, one I'd opened years ago, just in case. Back when I still thought being useful meant being valued. I called the clinic, gave my name, explained the situation, waited through a transfer. Looks like it was charged to a supplemental coverage card, the woman on the phone said. Authorized by Margaret Turner. My mother. I didn't say anything at first. Just stared at the muted screen of my laptop while her voice droned on about billing and itemized statements. My mom had used my account. Again. Without asking. Without a word. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened the old fireproof safe I hadn't touched in over a year. It held the family papers, documents I never threw away, even though I probably should have. Inside, buried under old leases and expired tax forms, I found what I was looking for. A notarized deed from 2015. Turner Aviation LLC. Owner, Eli Turner. I'd almost forgotten. Back then, my parents were dealing with a pile of debt from Jonah's failed drone racing company. They couldn't legally hold assets without risking seizure from creditors. So they begged me really, to temporarily place the title for the family airfield in my name. It's just a formality, my dad had said. We'll switch it back when things settle down. They never did. I stared at the paper, then looked at the account withdrawals again. The airfield was still mine. Legally, fully, on record. And now? I didn't want it anymore. The next morning, I called a commercial broker in Missoula. We set up a meeting. By Monday, I had offers. By Wednesday, I signed a preliminary agreement for sale. The field wasn't just property, it was everything. The hangar. The refueling station. The contracts tied to local flight schools and touring companies. It had value. Serious value. But I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it to end something. There had always been a tether, a guilt chain that kept me latched to them, no matter how many times they took advantage. But this was the final link. I sent the notice via email, then followed it with a formal letter. My voice didn't shake when I wrote it. My hand didn't hover over the keyboard. Effective immediately, Turner Aviation LLC is entering into a sale agreement. Current tenants will be notified by the new owners. Any unpaid obligations tied to the property are no longer my responsibility. No calls came that day. Not yet. But they would. I knew that as sure as I knew my name. Because when you kick out the foundation, the house starts to fall. And I was finally done holding up walls that had never sheltered me. The first time I realized my brothers weren't broke, just comfortable ignoring responsibility, was years ago, back when Jonah rented a luxury suite in Vegas for a drone expo and still called me the same week to ask for a small favor. Covering his lapsed flight insurance. You know I'm good for it, he'd said with a laugh, like I was the banker in some inside joke. I paid it. Of course I did. That's what I did back then. Filled in the cracks they pretended didn't exist. Looking back, I think that was the start of the pattern. The illusion of wealth paired with an allergic reaction to actual consequences. They hosted drone showcases with open bars and promo videos shot by Hart crews. Meanwhile, I was flying my own drones over frozen riverbeds for survey work at dawn because I couldn't afford to say no to a client. I used to think they were just dreamers. Now I see they were just protected. From bills. From stress. From reality. I had made their safety net so invisible, they started to think it was the ground. Selling the airfield cracked that illusion. The text started again short, frantic. You don't understand what this means for the company. We had a deal. You can't just sell the family's future. Eli, don't be emotional. Let's be rational adults here. Rational. That one made me laugh out loud. None of them had asked if I was okay when Mom stole from me. None had said a word when she ripped my Christmas gift in half. But now, with the sale moving forward and their operations in jeopardy, suddenly they remembered my number. They weren't angry about betrayal. They were angry about disruption. They weren't scared of losing me. They were scared of losing the infrastructure I provided. And in that way, the airfield sale wasn't just financial. It was symbolic. For years, they'd acted like they had wings, soaring, visionary, above it all. But I was the one maintaining the runway. Quietly. Relentlessly. Without thanks. So I cut the power to the tower. Let them glide on their own. See how far that illusion really carried. And as the final paperwork came through, as the checks cleared and the new ownership took over, I didn't feel sad. Or triumphant. Just unburdened. For the first time in my life, I didn't owe them anything. And they didn't even know how to stand on their own. The first call came from my dad. It was late, past 10. I let it ring, stared at the screen until it went quiet. Then came the voicemail. Eli, I need you to pick up. We need to talk about the airfield. Your brothers, we're all just trying to figure this out. Call me, please. I didn't. An hour later, another call. Jonah this time. No voicemail, just another missed notification. Then Caleb. Then my mother. By morning, I had 9 missed calls. That afternoon, I picked one. My dad again. I answered with a flat, yeah. There was a pause, then his voice, lower than usual. Son, why are you doing this? I leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling. Doing what? You sold the field. You didn't even warn us. You didn't ask. You never asked me when you put it in my name, I said calmly. Funny how that only works one way. He sighed. This isn't just about paperwork, Eli. This is about family. No, I said. This is about control. Another silence. Then, your mom's not doing well. The stress is getting to her. Caleb's business is on the line. Can't we just talk before this gets worse? I closed my eyes. It's already worse. Eli. I need to ask you something, I interrupted. Why haven't you asked Jonah or Caleb to fix this? What? You heard me. You've got 2 sons with aerospace degrees, company vehicles, branded drones, matching jackets for Christ's sake. Why am I always the one bailing everyone out? That's not fair, he said quickly, the old authority creeping back in. Isn't it? I said. You're calling me to fix the mess again. But when Mom tore up my gift in front of everyone, when you all laughed like it was some sitcom moment, no one called then. He didn't respond. So let me be clear, I said, voice steady. I'm not the fixer anymore. I'm not the wallet. And I'm definitely not the afterthought son who quietly holds it all together so the rest of you can pretend you've got it made. Don't say that, he said, quieter now. We've always appreciated you. No, I said. You needed me. That's different. Another pause. Then, softer, your mother's sick, Eli. We can't keep the field without you. Then you'll lose it, I said, flat. And maybe that's the best thing that could happen to all of you. The line went quiet. No yelling. No bargaining. Just silence. And for once, that silence didn't make me feel small. It didn't make me anxious. It made me feel free. The call came 2 days later. It was her. I knew it would be. I let it go to voicemail at first, but her second call came barely 10 minutes later, then the third right after that. I answered the fourth out of sheer curiosity. Eli, she said before I could speak, we need to talk. Her voice was shaky, but still carried that sharpness underneath. The kind that came out whenever she felt cornered. All right, I said, leaning against the counter. Let's talk. A pause. Then, In a softer tone, I don't know what's gotten into you. I almost laughed. Really? You have no idea why I might be done. You're being cruel, she said, her voice suddenly rising. Selling the airfield? Cutting off the lease? That was your father's dream. And I was the one paying for it, I said. She didn't respond right away. I've never asked you for much, she said next, switching gears. Everything you've done, you did because you wanted to. No, I said, calm and clear. I did it because I thought maybe, just once, I'd be seen. That I'd finally be part of the family, not just the background support. You were part of this family, she snapped. You tore up my gift, I reminded her. In front of everyone. You humiliated me, Mom. It was a joke, she said quickly. You're always so sensitive. You take everything the wrong way. I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. Then she said it. We only leaned on you, she murmured, because you were the reliable one. There it was. The truth. I felt it land like a final stone dropped in a dry well. Reliable. The one who didn't fight back. The one who always showed up, paid the bills, patched the cracks, fixed the things that weren't his to fix. They hadn't leaned on me because they respected me. They'd leaned on me because they knew I wouldn't say no. I was reliable, I said. That doesn't mean I was loved. Don't do this, she said quickly, her voice trembling now. You're going to ruin everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said. You all did that a long time ago. Then I breathed in slowly and added, I'm not the reliable one anymore. Eli. I hung up. No yelling. No dramatic exit. Just a quiet, steady end. And this time, I didn't feel shaken. I felt sure. It was a Saturday. Late morning, quiet. I was finishing up repairs on a drone that had taken a nasty tumble off a canyon ridge when I heard the familiar crunch of tires and gravel. I didn't look up until the garage door creaked open behind me. Seriously, Eli? A voice snapped. You're hiding out in here like nothing's happened? Jonah. He stood in the doorway, arms folded, sunglasses perched on his head like a prop. His coat was too clean for the weather. Behind him, Caleb stepped out of the car, pacing like he was prepping for a courtroom drama. And my parents, yeah, they were in the back seat, watching like it was all someone else's problem. I wiped my hands and set the drone down gently. You didn't call ahead, I said. Bad manners. Bad manners. Jonah scoffed. You sold the airfield, Eli. Without warning. Do you know what that did to us? Caleb stepped in. We lost 2 major contracts this week. Clients pulled out. Pilots walked. You didn't just sell land. You blew up the whole operation. I crossed my arms. You mean the operation I was paying to keep afloat? That wasn't your place to end, Jonah snapped. You were part of this family. No, I said. I was the infrastructure. And I finally turned the lights off. Caleb's eyes narrowed. You're being vindictive. No, I said again. I'm being honest. My dad stepped out of the car then, finally speaking. You're overreacting. This is still your family. We're supposed to survive things like this together. Survive what? I asked. Accountability? You mean that? He flinched. I walked over to the table and grabbed a manila folder I prepared, financial records, lease agreements, emails that showed exactly how much of their world had been propped up by my quiet, consistent work. I held it out. Here. This is everything. Every payment I made. Every month I covered the hangar. Every time one of you asked for just a little help. You want transparency? Here it is. None of them moved to take it. You kept track of all that? Caleb asked, his voice tight. I had to, I said. Because none of you ever did. Jonah looked furious. So this is it? You're just done? After everything? No, I said, steady. I was done the second Mom tore up that gift, and everyone laughed. This? This is just me finally enforcing the boundary. Caleb scoffed. And you think this makes you better than us? No, I said. Just freer. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then my mom rolled down her window and whispered something to my dad. He looked at me, eyes tired. We just wanted what was best for everyone. No, I said. You wanted what was easiest. I turned back toward the garage, wiped my hands again, and walked inside. They didn't follow. For once, they just stood there in the cold, holding nothing but their shame. It's been almost a year. I live in Durango now. A little town nestled in the mountains with enough sky to make you forget how small you ever felt. I fly private drone tours for tourists, sunrises over canyons, aerial reels for travel influencers, even a few scenic jobs for local real estate. I work for myself. I answer to no one. My apartment is small, but warm. I make coffee the slow way every morning. I go days without checking my phone. For the first time in my life, silence isn't something I have to survive, it's something I choose. My bank account doesn't have a dozen auto payments draining it every month. No hangar fees. No emergency transfers. No more. Can you just cover this one thing? They stopped trying after the airfield sold. After I shut down every joint account, changed every password, and made it legally impossible for anyone to touch anything with my name on it. Except for one. Last week, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in almost 6 months. Caleb. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Hey, Eli, he said, trying to sound casual. Long time. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. Wanted to see how you're doing. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the hesitations between his words. He was building to something. Jonah's been working on a new prototype, he added. We've had some traction. Investors maybe. But we were also wondering if, maybe, you'd want to grab lunch sometime? Reconnect. There it was. I smiled, slow and tired. You ever apologize to Max for taking his birthday money? I asked. Silence. Then, Eli, come on, this doesn't have to be. It already is, I said. And it's not changing. Another pause. You really mean that? He asked. I do, I said. You're not my family anymore. I hung up. No yelling. No drawn-out arguments. Just a line, cleanly cut, the way it should have been years ago. That night, I stood on a ridge above the valley, watching the last drone of the day return home through the wind. Below me, the lights of Durango flickered quietly. No missed calls. No guilt. Just peace.